Hi guys, Mrs. Mattingly here, and I am going to read Addison Cooke and the Tomb of the Khan, chapter 40. It starts on page 397, and it's called The Tomb. Addison's flashlight was tapped, so Molly scrounged in her survival kit and found a magnesium flare. She struck it and held it aloft, showering red sparks in all directions. They crept into the tunnel under its crackling red glow. Stairs carved into the rock eased their descent. The passage was wide enough to send echoes up and down the corridor. Carved stone demons leered from the walls of the cave. Skeletons of warriors flanked the tunnel, cloaked in dusty shrouds. Cobwebs had settled on the helms and dulled the blades of the axes. Addison saw the heaped bones of the butchered laborers who once carved this hidden tunnel. The passage opened into a massive gaping cavern with a rough dirt floor. In the center was a large stone tomb. Addison removed his ivy cap and wiped the hair from his brow. "This is it, the tomb of the Khan." "Death," said Raj. "The dark shroud that shields our mortal gaze from the light of destiny." Everyone turned to stare at him. "Raj," said Addison, "someday you are going to be a big hit at dinner parties." Nobody used Molly's flare to light the ancient torches anchored on the cavern walls. The group crossed the chamber to stand reverently by the stone tomb. Molly broke the silence. "So, where's the treasure? And where's the golden whip?" Addison quoted Sir Frederick's clue. "Know the Khan to open the tomb, know thyself to escape." "We have to try opening the tomb. The whip must be inside." Nobody shook his head. "We cannot open the Khan's coffin. It's sacred." Addison saw his point. He had a hard time picturing Sir Frederick rooting around inside a coffin as well. "His clue says we have to open the tomb. I don't see what our options are." He tried lifting the stone lid. Everyone pitched in to help. They strained until their faces boiled red. Nothing budged. The tomb appeared to be made of solid rock. They scoured the stone sarcophagus for secret buttons or levers. Addison pushed and prodded like a Swedish masseuse. "Are you sure this is the right coffin?" asked Molly at last. She was completely frustrated and completely covered in sweat. "Maybe we're on the wrong mountain." "If you think this is a mistaken grave, you are gravely mistaken." Addison crossed his arms and pondered. The stone tomb was completely uninteresting in every possible way. There were no ornaments or impressive designs. It did not seem a proper resting place for one of the most powerful people in history. "Okay, I'll admit, this doesn't seem like the tomb of a world conqueror. I've seen coffee tables that are nicer than this." Nobody shrugged. The Khan grew up poor. He was once a slave. Maybe he wanted something humble. Addison wasn't buying it. What about the 10,000 horsemen who trampled his grave? What about diverting a river to cover it? What about murdering all the laborers? Why go through all that trouble and just have this boring lump of rock? This can't be the tomb. It's too easy. Eddie was appalled. "You think this was easy? We crossed the entire Gobi Desert for this." Addison began pacing. Moving his feet helped jostle the neurons around his brain, like shaking a snow globe. He left zigzagging tracks on the dirt floor. The Khan's signature move on the battlefield was the false retreat. He was an expert at hiding his strengths. "This," Addison declared, pointing at the tomb, "is a decoy." He was now feeling quite sure of himself. "All right. So where's the real tomb?" Molly gestured around the empty cavern. Addison scratched his chin. He knew Madame Feng's team would arrive soon. He would hate to have come all this way just to see his hopes buried by a coffin. He kicked the dirt. He kicked the dirt a second time. He was about to kick the dirt a third time when an idea struck him. You know what's always bothered me? Why have 10,000 horses trample your grave and then divert a river over it? You don't need one if you have the other. It's overkill. Molly frowned. What's your point? Mo, stick to me like a straitjacket. What if they're two separate things? We already diverted a river to reach the necropolis. What if this is where the horses trampled the earth to flatten it? You're assuming they could even get horses up this mountain. They were the Mongol army. They could do anything. Molly looked down at the cavern floor. You're saying the Khan's tomb is underneath us? Addison nodded emphatically. Why else is a cave floor inside a mountain perfectly flat and covered in dirt? Molly raised her eyebrows. She studied the vast cave. So the Mongols carted dirt inside this cavern, buried the Khan's tomb, and trampled the dirt flat to hide it? Precisely, Molly. You are easily in my top 5 favorite cooks. Addison crossed to the stone sarcophagus. Know the Khan to open the tomb, know thyself to escape. He presented his case like a trial lawyer, making his summation before the jury. Someone who truly knows the Khan would know this was not his coffin, and they would not dare defile a Khan by opening up his casket. Well, we, my friends, are not supposed to open the sarcophagus at all. What are we supposed to do then? Addison had a hunch. He had a hunch. He hunched over. We moved the decoy. He pushed hard against the heavy stone. His team threw their shoulders in with him. He slid a few feet across the dirt, revealing a staircase burrowed into the earth. Addison's group grabbed torches from the wall and descended the stone steps. Raj took the lead, scouring for booby traps. After 50 paces, the hallway opened into the largest cave Addison had ever seen or imagined. They held their torches high, peering into the gloom. The cavernous chamber was piled with endless heaps of rubble, covered in a thick blanket of dust, as far as the eye could see. Addison could not mask his disappointment. Eddie was outraged. Sir Frederick left all these clues just to lead us to a dust heap? Was he just playing a practical joke? Even Nobody and I Don't Know looked upset. Addison couldn't decide his next move. He felt like giving up. Maybe, he thought, he should just wait for Madame Fang to arrive and turn himself in. Molly scanned the mountains of dust and surprised absolutely no one by breaking into a sneezing fit. The more she sneezed, the more dust she scattered in the air. It was a vicious cycle. When she regained control of herself, she did something that was surprising. She laughed. Addison found this in poor taste. They had just been on a 6,000-mile wild goose chase, and the last thing anyone needed was Molly to laugh about it. Molly laughed harder. She moved to the nearby pile of rubble where her sneeze had scattered some dust. She took a deep breath and blew away more dust. She held her nose to keep from sneezing. She plucked something out of the heap, blew on it, and polished it with her shirt sleeve. She held it up for the group to see. It was a gold coin. Addison's eyes communicated this information to his brain. His brain shook his head and ordered his eyes to double-check. He looked again. It was definitely a gold coin. Addison's feet carried him to the nearest hill of gray rubble. He took a diver's breath and blew away a cloud of dust. The hill was a heap of gold. Guys, I think we're in the right mountain. The group fanned out across the giant cavern. Everywhere their footprints ran, they turned the gray dust into shining gold. Everywhere they breathed revealed more hilltops of glittering gold. Every object they touched turned gray dust into shimmering treasure. Eddie's brain couldn't think of anything better to do, so it hung his mouth open and aired it out for a while. They were standing in an entire underground world of gold. Treasure from China filled the main atrium. The wealth of Persia was piled high in the next cavern. There were mountains of loot from Kazakhstan to Khwarezmia. Nice names. From Kashgar to Kiev, the treasures of all the fallen empires sacked by the Mongol horde. Addison wondered in daze. He admired the intricate silver work of the Daragang people. He hefted a scimitar gilded with the sword verse of the Quran, the sheath inlaid with rubies. He found a sultan's ivory chess set, the dark pieces carved with sapphires and the light pieces with emeralds. In the center of the chamber was a high stone platform that rose 20 feet in the air. It was decorated with jewels, weapons, and the bones of horses, slaves, and warriors. Addison climbed the marble steps to the Khan's tomb, sealed forever in a casket of ivory, the final resting place of the man who had conquered the world. Next to the tomb was a gold throne, and on the throne a gold whip. Nobody, and I don't know, dropped to their knees and bowed, pressing their foreheads to the ground. Addison opened his messenger bag and found his father's copy of The Secret History of the Mongols. He read his father's signature on the inside cover and then rested the book on the golden throne of the Khan. "We did it, Dad." His team mounted the steps and joined him at his side. "You know," said Molly, "if you still want to be a stockbroker, all you need to get started is a few handfuls of this gold." Addison realized that Molly had known all along he could never give up archaeology. "This gold doesn't belong to us. It belongs to history." Eddie stared at the mountains of treasure surrounding them. "Do you think the gold is booby-trapped if we try to take it, like in the Incan treasure vault?" "It might be. Sir Frederick didn't take any treasure, and he made it out. Maybe that's what the clue meant by 'know thyself to escape.' We didn't come here for treasure." "Addison, what's the point of treasure hunting if we don't get any treasure?" "The treasure is not the true reward, Eddie." "Well, what is?" "The adventure," says Raj. "Knowledge," says Molly. "This is," says Addison. He held up the golden whip.